Hey guys, it's Bro You Whack, and we're back with another Overwatch 2 tip video specifically for console. Now, we've already done 2 of these, where in the past we always look at a couple of heroes for each video, and I always enjoy making these types of videos because when it comes to console Overwatch versus PC Overwatch, there's not a lot of differences between the two besides how you actually control the game. And what I noticed when I first started to play Overwatch on console over 6 years ago was that the default settings for the controller was not truly optimized. So that's why I love this series where I can tell you specific heroes and how you can remap their buttons better to not only play them a little bit more easier, but a whole lot more effectively. And I think a good first example of this is the good old jump button. Now, we all know that the jump button for decades now has always been the A button because it's just how video games has always been structured. But for a hero like Hanzo that doesn't utilize a secondary fire with the left trigger, and if you hold the controller just like me, where your index fingers are on both triggers and your thumbs are on the thumbsticks, here's how you're always going to be trying to aim with Hanzo and try and jump around. You're always going to be moving your right thumbstick to the A button, and that's just stupid because you have a finger right here that is not being utilized. This is one of the more easier things to adjust to if you do decide to remap your buttons, but to remap your buttons, all you're going to do is press the start button, go down to options, and then you're going to press the right thumbstick to change a specific hero settings. In this case, it's Hanzo. And then you're going to go down, and then here you're going to go down to the jump button. You're going to press A to remap it, and then you're going to press the left trigger because once again, he doesn't have a secondary fire. Your finger is always on this trigger, so rather than just switching back and forth, you're going to utilize this trigger to jump with it. So now when you want to jump and aim with your head at the same time, no longer do you have to switch back and forth. You can now have full control of your aim while also being able to jump and lunge at the same time. And since you're playing Hanzo, wall climb as well. That's why I feel like this is probably the best change that you can ever do for any specific hero because you're not using this button for anything. The same idea can also be applied to the 2 flying heroes, Echo and Pharah, but more so Echo because, well, Pharah's default jet fuel button is the left trigger, whereas the default for Echo is the sticky bombs. But if you watch the series long enough, you guys know that whenever it comes to a primary and secondary fire hero, you're not always going to be using the 2 fires at the same time. So why are you going to always have fingers on the triggers at the same time, whereas a button that you utilize the most with Echo is the A button? So to change this, once again, you're going to press start, go down to options, click the right thumbstick to go to Echo. I'm already here, and then we're going to go down to her jump button. This is going to inspire the whole entire change, but we're going to press the A button to rebind it to the left trigger because once again, if you hold the controller like me, it's just so much easier to jump than rather than switch back and forth for a hero that is constantly pressing the A button. But that means that her secondary fire, her sticky bombs, are no longer bounded, so we're going to change it to the right bumper. The whole idea behind this is that this side of the controller is the attacking side. This is my primary, these are my sticky bombs, but that means that her beam is no longer bounded, so we're going to utilize another button and change it to the left thumbstick. You're just going to click that in, but that means that her interact button, wait, I didn't even change it. That means her interact button is no longer being used, and this is mainly used for symmetric teleporters, and I always change it to the right of the D-pad because, again, it's very few and far in between where you're going to really have a Symmetra on your team where you're going to need to have an optimized button. Here, it's the best option because you're so limited. But now that you changed everything, now you're able to truly utilize her jump and her flight while controlling Echo, being able to have full control of her aim, especially when you're gliding down with Echo. Because, again, rather than having to hold down the A button where you're not able to, like, aim with her head, now you can because you're not having to switch. And while Pharah's change isn't all that game changing because once again her jet fuel is already bounded to the left trigger, her jump button isn't. And the thing about Pharah is that she doesn't have a secondary fire, and if you rebind it to the left trigger, that means you can just do a double take for her jump and jet fuel. So we're gonna go down to her jump button and we're just gonna simply change it to the left trigger. Don't worry about rebinding her secondary fire because she doesn't have a secondary fire, and now you're just able to simply jump with Pharah and also have control over your jet fuel. So I like to do just a jump, boom, and then you're able to control the jet fuel like that. Again, a small change, but still a good change nonetheless. Winston is another hero that could benefit heavily from changing the jump button to the left trigger, but unfortunately in Overwatch 2, you now have a secondary fire that got replaced with the left trigger because originally in Overwatch 1, he didn't have a secondary fire, but we can still find ways around it, and I think you already know how we can do this. You already know the drill. Go to options, press the right thumbstick, go down to Winston, and the first change we're going to be making is to his jump button, and we're going to rebind it to the left trigger just like Echo, and also just like Echo, his secondary fire, or his Chidori ability as I always call it, is now unbounded. Now we're going to change it to this half of the controller, to his right bumper, and that means that his bubble ability is no longer going to be bounded, and based on your preference, you can change it to either the left thumbstick or the left bumper and change his leap ability to the left thumbstick. I just have it for simplicity, just keeping it on the left bumper because I'm so used to the jump button after all these years. It is unfortunate, I guess depending on how you look at it, him getting a secondary ability, because now I have to adjust having his bubble on the left thumbstick, where for years I was always just used to it being on the right bumper. But because he now has a secondary fire, it's just one of those changes to have to get used to if I want to be able to still have a jump button be the left trigger, especially for a jumpy boy like Winston. You're gonna need it. You're gonna need it. Now, the last tier that you can play better on console just by simply remapping your buttons is for Kiriko. Now, this is a hard adjustment to make, I will admit, but the thing about Kiriko is just like Genji, just like Lucio, you have your secondary fire, which is your kunai on the left trigger, and you have your healing of Fuda. And while you technically can kind of use both, you can use them back and forth, you already know the drill of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be changing all the button layouts so that we can better utilize the jump button, especially for a hero like Kiriko, but also better utilize the left thumbstick, especially for a hero that needs the instantaneous abilities. So once again, I go down to options, go to Kiriko. We're going to be changing more than just her button layout, but also her quality of life changes. So you can change the swift step sensitivity. I changed it to 60, but this is all based on preference. But what I would highly suggest doing is change the toggle healing of Fuda to off, and then also turn the automatically climb walls onto on. This is a little bit more preference, but the toggle healing of Fuda, change that to off, because what this is going to allow you to do is just lightly tap your healing ability rather than lock you in every single time to 10 healing of Fuda papers. If someone's just slightly hurt, they don't need you to be locked in for 10 whole papers. Just lightly tap and you'll be able to heal them. But the other buttons, this is going to be a woozy of a change, but stick with me. We're going to change her jump button to the left trigger. That means that her kunai is no longer bounded, so we're going to change it once again to this half of the controller to the right bumper. It's going to be a hard adjustment. That means that her cleansing grenade is no longer bounded, but this is a little bit more preference. I would rather have the cleansing on the left bumper and have her swift step be on the left thumbstick, which is her ability 1. I wish they changed the names to have it actually be the abilities, but we're going to change it to the left thumbstick because for me personally, I want to be able to instantly teleport to people. The cleansing grenade, it has a much higher cooldown, whereas the swift step, it has a much more shorter cooldown. So that's why I have the swift step on the left thumbstick, a button that I'm always going to be utilized. But for the other stuff that we also changed, now we have the jump button on the left trigger, and once again, just like Hanzo, you're able to wall climb a little bit easier. Admittedly, it's something that's very hard to adjust to, but after a couple of games, you will get the hang of it, and again, you'll be able to react a whole lot better based on the swift step change, which will just make you an overall better Kiriko. And especially in a fast-paced game like Overwatch where you need fast reactions, even if it's half of a millisecond, that's half a millisecond faster than your opposition, all just by simply changing your buttons. And admittedly, while it's a tough adjustment initially for heroes like Kiriko and Genji and Lucio, more so than heroes like Hanzo, which is such a simple change, I promise you it will make you better because the controller is better optimized. But hey, I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm just here to give you some tips, and hopefully this can help you out in the future. But anyway, guys, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. More Overwatch 2 videos to come, and bye.